I will now turn to Mr. Volpe. I keep seeing that you are taking notes. Please share some of those notes with us.
I will. In fact, I got a few ideas by listening to the other distinguished members of this panel. I will touch upon the wholesale market, starting from, first of all, a general statement, a general consideration, which is wholesale markets in general. The good thing about them is that there isn't much to be invented, because actually there's many countries worldwide which have been practicing how to improve wholesale electricity markets for very long. There is actually professors at very distinguished schools that make a living out of this for many years, for decades. So there is a lot, if you want, of thought behind how to design a well-functioning market. And of course, it's a journey. It's not something that can be done in a day. As Mr. Cernat was explaining, you start from a certain point and then you keep adding new features. I think what is important is to keep improving and moving forward, because you're never done with the design of a market. Clearly, the ultimate goal continues to be to try to make it more efficient, to try to make it more complete, and therefore try to make sure that the market allows always the best prices to be determined by the market mechanisms. The Romanian market has made significant progress, but it cannot today be considered a liquid market, especially if we compare it with the Western Central European power markets. So the amount of energy, if you want, traded on the market is not enough, and there's still a number of structural and regulatory constraints that make it not sufficiently liquid, and this is one issue. I mean, this is the result of many things. First of all, there is a good variety of products, but they're also traded at this point on separate markets. So of course, the variety of products is important. Actually, you should have probably more products, but maybe to have markets which are separated and have different contractual rules, a bit different from one another, adds complexity, doesn't necessarily add simplicity. It's more difficult to establish a reference price, and also you split volumes on many markets, and since you already have low volumes in general, because the liquidity is not very high, you keep splitting things more and more. So probably we think that you should have more products. You should have products like, for example, derivatives, which are not existing yet in the Romanian market, but probably the platform should be a fairly common one. There is also, as I said, nothing needs to be particularly invented in this domain. We have an OTC, over-the-counter market, that works with EFET contracts, which are a standardized contractual form, but only applies to the market, for example. We have a market that is only designed for the single buyer, so the entity that buys energy for the residential market and and part of the business market, but there's a market only for this kind of buyer. So you have one buyer, many suppliers, but a market with one buyer clearly cannot be completely competitive. So probably in the future, maybe the next evolution of this could be to have this product being bought on just the regular market, and maybe this would provide additional benefit at the end of the day to the consumers, because you might achieve a better price, which is passed to the residential users or the business users. There is also some more technical issues relative to, for example, on the export, we are not using the standard European time zone, but we are using a different time zone. That also might seem like a small thing, but when you're talking about trading of energy and something small that, however, improves. So the point I wanted to make on the wholesale market is that there's been progress. There is good reference worldwide, so you can pretty much open the books and see how people have done it elsewhere, which doesn't mean you just need to copy-paste. You need to always do a smart adaptation of the things that you find. And so it's important that we keep improving, we keep working at it. So I will take actually one of the methods, one of the comments that was made this morning by Mihnea Constantinescu, and Ambassador Constantinescu. He was saying, sometimes more than the strategy, more than the, I'm kind of quoting a little bit with some freedom, but more than the strategy, more than the politics, what is important is the method at which you work, and the fact that you keep receiving feedback from the various parties that operate in the market, and that the institutions have a clear responsibility in trying to take this suggestion and step by step improve things, because this is the only way to go forward. The other comment I wanted to make is that, so it's not only the methodology of constant improvements, but also the methodology where you correctly put things in a sequence is important to then create benefits at the end of the day for the final consumers. And what do I mean by that? For example, third energy package in Europe, directive of laws, creates a strong push for increased market liberalization at residential level, the possibility of customers to switch from one supplier to another, and so on and so forth. And of course, we completely agree that this is the direction that you should go forward. However, to be able to do that, you need to first invest, or very quickly in parallel invest in the technical infrastructure that allows you to administer, to manage the processes in a way to achieve those goals. So if you want, for example, to switch customers very fast, I think the new regulations, most likely the so-called summer package of the EU regulation, will push for an ultimate goal of switching customers in 24 hours, switching suppliers for customers in 24 hours. In order to do that, if you have, for example, an infrastructure which is very manual, very bureaucratic, that does not use the latest technology, like, for example, the ability to read the meter remotely, which is called the digital meter, but this is essentially one of the things that the digital meter can do, then it gets very difficult to achieve not even the goal of 24 hours, but even the goal of 21 days, which is currently what has been set by the... So, sequencing things in the right order and giving priority first to the enabling factors and then to other things is for us part not really of the strategy, but part of this methodology, part of the practical work that we need to do. And when I say, I use the term we, because it's of course not only the work done by the operators, it's not only the work done by the regulators, but it's a work that needs to be done together with an intense collaboration and discussion, because it involves many little decisions, all of which then compose, if you want, a puzzle that is aimed at delivering consumer benefits. So that's, for example, why we believe that in terms of distribution in Romania, we need to, the focus of our investments in the future, having already done certain things before. So we have already done certain steps before, like, for example, investing a lot in automation, which has improved the quality of the service. We have invested a lot in high voltage. We have invested quite a lot also medium voltage. We believe that the future focus will be more the low voltage and the digitalization, what we call the digitalization of the grid, starting from the first element, which is the smart meters, where there is a pilot in Romania. Romania is committed to invest in this, which is, I think, extremely good for the country. But we need to complete this project, which will take a few years, respecting the commitment that we have taken. I mean, digital meters, for example, can do a number of things that go in the direction of consumer benefit. First of all, energy savings. It is proved that when you provide information to the consumers about the amount of energy that they're using. There's been many studies, many statistics, many results that show, but anything between 5 and 10% of energy savings can be achieved. And Romania, by the way, is also committed to the energy saving directive of EU. It's also about energy efficiency. There was a study, for example, in Ireland that shows that once you provide customers with smart meters, 82% of the customers somehow change their behaviors in terms of energy usage. So pretty much everybody starts to change a little bit the behavior, which of course leads to the efficiency, but also sometimes leads to more rational, more logic use of energy, and therefore also benefits upstream in the value chain. You have a basis also to launch value-added services for customers, so different services. You have, of course, better consumer empowerment, which translate into shorter time to receive a number of services and so on and so forth. There is also the potential to, at the end, achieve the famous goal of the directives, which is to allow customers to switch. What we have seen, for example, in Italy, where the smart meter project has been completed in 2006, 2007, that, of course, it's not the only factor, but this is one of the key factors that led to increased competition in retail. We have about 150 competitors in the retail market with a number of tailored different tariffs for consumers, different during the night, during the day, depending on the time hour of the day and so on. So time of use tariff and so on. We also noticed, again, not the only factor, but contributed also to the increase on the switch rate. We have a data that between 2008 and 2007, so soon after the project was completed, we had an increase of the switch rate of about 15%. It's difficult to say that the only reason was that, but for sure it was an enabling factor. And also it provides efficiency to the system. So for example, certain technical parameters like the rate at which you are efficient in controlling meters improved from 5% to 60%. Efficiency is always important in our business, because efficiency, the more the distributor is efficient, the more also this translates by virtue of the regulatory framework into, at the end, consumer benefit, because we have a system in Romania and also in other countries to share the OPEX, the operational cost efficiency with the final consumer. So, I mean, I went into the details of this example of the meter just because I wanted to create, again, this link between the method, constant improvement, sequencing, and giving priority to things is important. It's a little bit independent from strategy, because once, this is a strategy that even has been set up for us by the European Union. So to a certain extent, it's already, there isn't much to discuss, but the devil is in the details. The professional work of every operator, whether on the market, whether private or not, is to contribute actively to the constant improvement in the sector.